My brother knew very well that my fiancée was his ex. They had a history together, and yet he had the audacity to propose to her right in front of our entire family, as if that was somehow acceptable. I was completely shocked and furious. It felt like a betrayal from both of them, and now I don't even know who to trust or how to move on from this. My younger brother proposed to my fiancée right in front of our whole family, and I'm still furious about it. I'm 32, his name is Trevor, he's 30. He dated Kelly about a year ago. According to him, it wasn't serious. They saw each other for less than a month, and he ended things because he got bored. Knowing how he usually treated women, I had no reason to doubt that. At the time, I didn't even know he was seeing anyone. I was living in another state back then and wasn't really involved in his personal life. I met Kelly after I moved back home. We crossed paths at a bar. Nothing special. She ordered a beer and accidentally bumped my glass with her elbow. But we started talking, and I had that gut feeling like I wanted to stay. She was smart, calm, and just real. After a few dates, it was clear we were on the same wavelength. By December, we were officially together. I'm not someone who overshares with my family, especially when it comes to relationships. So my parents only found out about her right before Christmas. I told them I wanted them to meet her. They were excited and asked to see a photo. I passed my phone around the table. When Trevor got it, everything went sideways. He flipped. Really lost it. Grabbed the phone, stared at the screen, then at me and blurted out, "You're dating my ex?" I had no clue what he was talking about. Kelly? He said they dated for a month and now I was a shitty brother. I asked Kelly about it. She didn't hide anything. Yes, they had a brief thing. She didn't know we were brothers. I'd never talked about my family, and she didn't see it as serious enough to even mention. It was awkward, but I figured if he dumped her and they weren't serious, then his reaction was just bruised ego. He sulked for a few weeks, then backed off. Or so I thought. For Kelly's birthday, I planned a dinner at a restaurant. Both of our families were there, along with some of her close friends. At the end of the night, I stood up, pulled out the ring, and proposed. She said yes. It was probably the happiest moment of my life. Trevor, of course, ruined the mood. Scoffed, got up, mumbled something. My sister shut him down quickly. I figured that was it. Done. Maybe he was jealous. I was wrong, again. A couple weeks later, Trevor invited us to a family dinner at his place. Said our parents and sisters would be there. It felt a little off, but I thought maybe he wants to make peace, or at least come to terms with things. Dinner was normal. No weird topics. Everyone was polite. We ate, then moved to the living room. Someone turned on music. Dad was talking about work. My sisters were discussing wedding dresses. About 30 minutes in, Trevor stood up and said he had an announcement. I remember him walking to the middle of the room, looking at our parents, then at me. "I'm glad you're all here. This is an important moment for me." And then he got down on one knee, pulled out a ring, and turned to Kelly. "Marry me." She froze. I did too. Nobody understood what was happening. He was standing there with this cheap, tacky ring, just waiting. My dad started to get up to stop him, but I got there first. I don't even remember what he said. My head was just noise. I shoved him. It felt like if I didn't do something right that second, I was going to explode. I hadn't spoken to Trevor for almost a week after that dinner. I was too angry to even try to explain anything. At some point, I started second-guessing myself. Was it my fault things got this bad? Maybe I really shouldn't have gotten involved with someone he'd briefly dated? But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't about feelings. It was an attack, a setup, a calculated move meant to humiliate me. Kelly was in shock, too. For a few days, she barely spoke. Not because she was mad. More like she just couldn't process it. It triggered old wounds, memories of men who couldn't take rejection. She was trembling when she recalled Trevor's smug expression, his dramatic speech, the ring. I didn't know how to make her feel safe. All I could do was be there and not pressure her. On the third day, I texted Trevor. No emotions, just, "We need to talk. At my place. Preferably with Kelly there too." He agreed. Showed up on time, with that stone-cold face of his. We sat in silence for the first few minutes. I took a breath and apologized for not giving him a heads up about the proposal and for hitting him. He shrugged and said he didn't care. But fine, apology accepted. I cut to the point, told him Kelly had been honest with me about their brief thing and asked if that's really how it happened. He confirmed it. Yeah, they dated for less than a month. He ended it himself because he wasn't feeling it. I asked the obvious question. If there were no feelings, then why the proposal? Trevor said a friend put the idea in his head that maybe Kelly had known from the start that we were brothers and was only dating me to get back at him. Apparently, she took their breakup hard, and he'd heard she tried reaching out afterward, so he wanted to test her, see if she'd dump me the second he showed interest. I looked at him and didn't recognize the person in front of me. He didn't look heartbroken. He wasn't wounded. He was cold, like it was all just some experiment. Kelly asked him why he thought she even cared that much. He said he'd heard she kept going to the same places they used to go together. Got that from mutuals, and seeing her with me just confirmed his theory. Kelly calmly explained that she didn't avoid her favorite places just because of a short fling, and if she asked about him once, it was out of politeness, not longing. Her voice was steady, but I could feel how tense she was inside. By the end, Trevor gave some kind of apology. Dry, empty. Said he got why she was upset, but still thought I should have broken up with her as soon as I found out about their history. Then he added that if the roles were reversed, he would have done the right thing. I highly doubt that. Before leaving, he told me to consider his wedding invitation void. He said he couldn't be around a couple where the girl used to be his. I told him he didn't have to worry. He probably wouldn't have been invited anyway. He nodded, didn't say anything, just walked out. After that conversation, things felt a little lighter. Not better, but clearer. I realized this wasn't about love, not about Kelly, and definitely not about a mistake. It was about territory, about control, about him being angry that I had something he decided he deserved, even if he didn't want it until he saw me with it. Kelly just listened quietly while I told her everything. Then she sat down beside me and rested her head on my shoulder. We didn't say anything, just sat in silence. That was the end of any illusions, and the start of something else, something harder but honest. The next few weeks felt strange, like Kelly and I were living inside a glass bubble, untouched but constantly watched. We stopped going to family events, didn't bring up the wedding, and avoided any talk of Trevor. We just worked, cooked dinner, tried to live normally, but the tension never really left. Then my mom invited us to my younger sister Amber's birthday. She was turning 23, and I knew saying no wasn't really an option. My sisters had asked us to come. Kelly hesitated but said she didn't want to ruin anything. We agreed to go, be polite, and only talk to people who genuinely wanted us there. The evening started off fine. My sisters were happy to see us, Amber was glowing, and my dad stayed neutral. But after the toast ended and people started talking in smaller groups, my mom came over and quietly asked, "So he's really not invited?" I didn't even realize who she meant at first and just said, "No." She went pale and said she thought I was joking, that it was just a heat-of-the-moment thing. I told her it was mutual. Trevor declined the invite himself. She looked at me like I just shot myself in the foot, told me I was selfish, that I was tearing the family apart over hurt pride, that blood is thicker than grudges. I reminded her Trevor had proposed to my fiancée in front of everyone. She waved it off. It was just a joke. I didn't push it. It was Amber's night. Kelly squeezed my hand and we walked away. A few days later, my mom showed up at our house. No warning. Kelly answered the door and Mom went straight into it. "You need to convince him to invite Trevor. He's your future brother-in-law, like it or not." Kelly froze, but calmly said she wouldn't speak on my behalf. Mom smirked. "Of course not. You don't have your own opinion." I heard that from the kitchen and stepped out. Told her if she came here to insult my fiancé, she could leave. She didn't. She started yelling that Kelly and I were manipulating each other, that I'd changed, that I wasn't the son she used to know. "You're a stranger now," she screamed. Kelly tried to calm her down, but Mom grabbed her wrist. I stepped in, pulled her away. The argument escalated quickly until Kelly asked her to leave. Mom refused, so Kelly opened the door and pointed outside. Mom left, but not before promising she'd come back when we were ready to talk like adults. The next day, the text started. To me, to Kelly, to my sisters, to everyone even remotely connected to us. She said Kelly was destroying the family, that she'd brainwashed me, that we were making a huge mistake. My sisters didn't respond. My dad called and told me I needed to be more patient. I hung up. We started talking about whether we should even keep trying anymore. I felt like everything was spiraling. I wanted our wedding to be a celebration, not a battlefield. But deep down, I knew we'd already passed the point of no return. And then my mom came again. While I was at work, she knew I was working. She came on purpose to catch Kelly alone. Said she just wanted to talk. But it ended with her screaming again. More accusations, more guilt trips. When Kelly tried to close the door, she grabbed her by the hair and dragged her to the floor. Kelly called me after Mom had left. Her voice was shaking. I rushed home as fast as I could. She had scratches on her arm, marks on her face. I wanted to call the police. She cried and begged me not to. Said she just wanted my mom gone from our lives. Forever. I texted my mother and told her she was no longer invited to our wedding or to our home, that she would never see me or Kelly again. And if she ever came near our house again, I'd file a police report. I don't even know how things got this broken, but right now there's only one question in my head. How many more times will I have to protect my family from my own mother? I thought I'd already been through the worst. I was wrong. Ever since the day my mother attacked Kelly, I stopped answering calls and texts. She messaged every day, first apologizing, then blaming, then apologizing again. Begging to talk, then threatening. The classic abuse cycle. I knew the phases by heart. I'd lived them since childhood. Kelly still didn't want to go to the police. Her reasoning made sense. She didn't want my mom to end up in jail. She didn't want to turn trauma into a legal war. But I couldn't sleep at night. We sat down, read some forum posts, talked to my friend who's a lawyer. He said, even if we don't want to press charges, we need to officially document the attack so that if anything happens again, we'll have a record. We went to the station together. The officers listened, took a statement, photographed the scratches, and recorded everything. They told us directly, unless Kelly pushed to escalate the case, not much would come of it legally. But even just filing the report was a step. I felt relief. Kelly didn't. My mom kept up her performance. She called everyone, my sisters, my friends, even Kelly's parents. She said Kelly was manipulating me, that the incident was a misunderstanding, that no one was really hurt. She tried to get my dad involved. He called. I didn't want to answer, but I did. He started off calm. Maybe you're overreacting. Then, your mom just lost control. That doesn't mean you cut her off forever. When I reminded him she hit my fiancée, he said, she was under stress, and you're not exactly innocent either. That's when I knew he was always going to protect her, no matter what she did. I told him that Kelly and I were cutting contact with both of them, that I was done being the son in a family where abuse gets brushed aside. He went quiet, didn't defend himself, didn't apologize, just said softly, that's a shame. I hung up. A few days later, we got a letter from my mom, a real one, handwritten in an envelope. Her writing was shaky. It was everything at once, guilt, blame, self-pity. You chose her over me. I carried you in my body. How could you let this woman tear our family apart? Not a single word about what she did, just that I was the one who ruined everything. I didn't open the letter in front of Kelly. I burned it on the balcony, not because I was afraid. I just didn't want her to hurt more than she already had. That same week, I canceled the wedding venue. We had booked a space for over 100 people, including both sides of the family, and I realized we don't want to start our life surrounded by lies. One evening, Kelly and I sat down with a glass of wine and started looking at other options. Just something simple, honest, ours. My sisters were on board. Amber suggested holding the ceremony at our aunt's house in the backyard. It was a small space but beautiful. Old trees, a wooden deck, quiet. Kelly loved the idea. For the first time in weeks, we could breathe again. I sent a message to all the relatives who had sided with my mom. Short, emotionless. Thanks for your involvement. We've decided to hold a small private ceremony. We hope you'll respect that. There were barely any replies, just silence, and one postcard from my aunt. You did the right thing. We'll be there. My life didn't get easier. I lost my parents. For good. But for the first time in years, I feel like I'm doing something right. Not for anyone else. For us. I knew my mother wouldn't give up that easily, but I didn't think she'd go this far. After we told the relatives about the new wedding format, a second wave of pressure began. This time, it wasn't direct. It came in the form of whispers, subtle digs, and coincidental encounters. My cousin called and said my mom had been going around the neighborhood telling people that Kelly came from money and that I was selling out my family. It was so ridiculous. It didn't even make me angry, just tired. One day, Kelly showed me a screenshot, a message from an unknown number, something like, your turn to pay for what you've done. No name. We changed our phone numbers, installed cameras at the door, started double-checking the car was locked at night. That feeling of being watched, it wears you down. Even when everything looks calm on the outside, inside you're constantly bracing. My sister Charlotte told me mom was blaming Trevor for everything now, saying he should have been stronger and not let a woman come between brothers. I wasn't surprised. That's been the script since childhood. No matter what happened, it was never their fault. It was always about who didn't keep things under control. Like when Trevor broke my toys and I got punished for not stopping him. And here's the paradox. I finally felt like I was standing up for myself, for us. But at the same time, there was this familiar childhood ache. Like I was 6 years old again, standing outside a door that had just shut, hearing my family whispering behind it, and being left out. The difference was now, I didn't want to be let back in. At some point, I realized I needed to talk to someone, not just Kelly or my sisters, someone neutral. We found a therapist. The first session was rough. I didn't know where to start. He asked, how long have you felt like you weren't allowed to be angry? That question knocked the wind out of me, because the truth was, I'd always blamed myself, even when others hurt me. Kelly was with me every step of the way. She didn't push, didn't lecture. She just held my hand. We made our guest list together, picked tablecloth colors together, talked about whether she should keep the dress she chose before all this chaos. We laughed, argued, laughed again. And suddenly I realized we were okay, really okay. No outside pressure, no control. And Trevor? He reached out again. Short message, no greeting. Changed my mind. Send the invite. I want to be there. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to my sisters. Amber replied, if he comes, I won't. Charlotte just wrote, proud of you. 2 days later, he texted again, this time angrier. Said I'd ruined everything, that we'd never be a real family again, that if mom got sick, I wouldn't be forgiven. I deleted the message and blocked his number. I'm done playing their games. Kelly and I took a weekend trip to visit her brother, just to get away. A small lake town. Quiet, pine trees, little coffee shops where no one knows you. Sitting on the porch, she said, everything that happened didn't break us. It balanced us. I smiled, because I realized, yes, that's exactly what it did. We picked a date. We picked a place. We picked our people. And most importantly, we picked each other. Everyone else, we didn't. I thought it couldn't get worse. And then my mother ambushed me outside of work and had a meltdown right there in the parking lot. We had finally started to breathe. After the trip to Kelly's brother's, I felt like we could actually build a normal life. We were planning the wedding without looking over our shoulders. Kelly was exploring remote work, and I'd spoken to my manager about a potential transfer. Everything was moving toward calm. And then she showed up. I saw her as soon as I walked out of the building, standing near my car, arms crossed. I wasn't even surprised. She started with accusations, said I'd ruined her life, that now all the relatives looked at her like she's crazy. I didn't answer, just walked past her. Then she yelled that I was a pathetic traitor, that Kelly broke my spine, and I was happy about it. I turned and said one sentence. I filed a report. It's not just a piece of paper. She ran up and started shoving me, first in the chest, then my arm. Not hard, but enough to be noticed, and people were already turning to watch. I didn't respond. I just pulled out my phone and started recording. That set her off. She screamed that I was a cursed son for filming my own mother falling apart. After a couple minutes, security came and escorted her off the premises. I stood there empty-handed with a pounding headache. My manager called me into her office later. I explained what happened, showed her the video, the report. She was understanding. Said if I decided to relocate, they'd support it. I didn't expect that. It meant a lot. When I told Kelly, she went quiet. I thought she'd panic or cry or get angry, but she just said, that's it. We sat down in the kitchen, talked for a long time, and came to a decision. Complete cutoff from my family except for my sisters. No more talks, no more texts, no more half-hearted attempts at reconciliation. We were done. Too much pain that no one even acknowledged. Kelly suggested we not just move, but leave the state. Her brother had been looking at a property nearby, and now there was an opportunity for us to relocate closer to them. We discussed it. Finances, logistics, work. Nothing rushed. Just quiet, practical steps forward. Like we weren't running, just moving on. My sisters supported us. Charlotte said mom would never change. Amber wrote, you did everything you could. Now it's your turn to be happy. That helped. Not completely, but enough. We followed up with the police, told them about the new incident. They said that since it was a repeat offense, a restraining order was possible. Kelly was unsure, but I said, I want everything documented. Not for revenge, for safety, for peace, for our future. Later I called my father, for the last time, not to make peace, but to say what needed to be said. He picked up. His voice was tired. I said, we're moving. I won't tell you where, not out of spite, but because you didn't protect us. He didn't say anything, just sighed. I hung up. That night, Kelly fell asleep early. I sat by the window staring outside. It was quiet. No yelling, no threats, no banging on the door. And suddenly I realized this was the feeling I'd been missing my whole life. Safety. And if we had to walk through hell to get here, then it was worth it. After that call with my dad, I thought it was over. No more messages, no more letters. But turns out my mother always has one more level of insanity up her sleeve. A week later, Charlotte called. She said mom had finally gotten to Trevor, and not just a quick chat. She had begged him to rebuild the connection between me and the family. According to her, he was the only one who could bring us back together. And of course, Trevor didn't disappoint. Instead of telling her, Mom, stop, he decided to play the hero and showed up at our doorstep. I saw him through the peephole, standing there with a paper bag, like he came in peace. I didn't want to open the door, but Kelly looked at me and quietly said, open it. You need to close it yourself. So I stepped outside. He started with the usual. I don't want to interfere. I just want you to be happy. Then came the lines about mom not being herself, but hurting deeply. Then the classic, none of us are perfect. It all sounded like a script. And as I listened, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. There was no bitterness, just exhaustion. I asked him, do you really think that after everything she's done, we're just supposed to go back and pretend like it's fine? He looked down, stayed quiet, then said, you've always been stubborn. I just hoped family still meant something to you. I answered calmly. It did. Until family started hitting my fiancé. He tried to say something else, but I closed the door. Not in anger, no slamming, just closed it. He hasn't come back since. But a letter came from my mother. Not to me, to Kelly. Handwritten with weird underlines like some schoolyard apology note. It had lines like, sorry if I hurt you. You don't understand what it's like to lose a son. I hope you'll come to your senses. Kelly read it out loud. No emotion. At the end, she just said, I won't reply. That's not an apology. It's manipulation. I agreed. We burned it. Together. That's kind of become our ritual. Burning anything that no longer has power over us. From that day on, no more calls, no more letters. Just silence. And in that silence, peace. We moved. The new house is modest but cozy. Big windows looking out onto pine trees. The scent of fresh wood everywhere. The neighbors are kind but not intrusive. No questions about where we're from. Just welcome and a pie on the porch. I transferred to a local branch. Same job, but quieter. No small talk. No prying looks. Kelly found a remote position too. We lived simply and happily in the small things we used to miss before. One morning, I woke up earlier than usual and stepped out onto the porch. I grabbed a cup of coffee and sat down. The air was cool, the world completely quiet, and I realized I wasn't waking up in dread anymore. I wasn't waiting for someone to show up. I was just living peacefully with the woman who never left, who stayed beside me no matter what. And even if the wedding was still ahead, we were already a family, because family isn't just the people who share your blood. It's the ones who stay when it hurts, the ones who know how not to harm. Our wedding was quiet. No 40-minute speeches, no distant relatives we hadn't seen in years, no drama. Just the people we chose ourselves. The ones who didn't ask things like, maybe you'll reconcile someday? The ones who simply smiled and showed up. We had the ceremony in the backyard. Simple wooden chairs, string lights, live music. Kelly walked down the aisle barefoot. Her idea. She said she wanted to feel the ground beneath her feet. I had never seen her like that. Free, happy, fully herself. My chest was shaking, but not from fear. From a feeling I couldn't even name. Just, finally, something that was ours. None of my family showed up, except my sisters and my aunt and uncle. And honestly, that was the best thing that could have happened. No side eyes, no tension, no forced smiles. Just honesty, and a kind of quiet that made it easier to breathe. After the ceremony, Kelly and I didn't go to a fancy hotel. We stayed home, changed into pajamas, ordered pizza, and watched an old movie we both loved. It was perfect. No official dinners, no fake toasts, no tight smiles. Just us, just our world. A week later, I got a letter from an attorney. My mom had tried to reach me through his office. Apparently, she wanted to facilitate reconciliation through a third party. By then, we already had a temporary restraining order in place. I sent a formal response. No contact, no approach, no attempts to make peace. And that was it. Since then, silence. Even Trevor hasn't messaged. I guess they all finally understood. I wasn't coming back. Sometimes I still catch myself thinking old thoughts. Like, what if mom's really sick? Or what if dad wants to talk? But then I remember I already gave them a chance to rebuild something, and I did my part. I came back. I forgave. I gave time. I gave voice. And in return, silence, passive aggression, blame, and eventually, violence. Leaving doesn't mean I didn't love them. It means I refused to keep suffering in the name of a love that only causes pain. Now I live differently, slowly, intentionally. I've learned to wake up without dread. I'm no longer afraid to leave the house. I don't worry what relatives might think if I do something the wrong way. Those rules, I write them myself now. Kelly started a blog about trauma and healing. Sometimes I read her posts and barely recognized the woman who once sat shaking in our kitchen after the attack. There's strength in her now. I'm proud of her. We got a dog. Small, loud. Her name is Piper. She barks at mail carriers and is terrified of the mop. But every evening she curls up at our feet while we watch a show. And in those moments I feel it, that we made it. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm not the bad son, or the runaway, or the traitor. I'm just a person who chose himself. And you know what? That's okay.